Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.
We were at the bottom, where there was nowhere else to go but come up. That's the story of the PIB today. We have said it here. In the last 4 years, over $70 billion came to Africa. And of that, only $3 billion came to Nigeria. And we are supposed to be the largest producer of oil and gas in Africa. Okay, now, the industry is in stiff competition with renewable energy. So in another 20 years, we might not have anything to do with this. Like the GMD will always remind us, we have coal in Enugu. Who is talking about coal today? So we have also realized that in between now, this year and next year, if we don't do anything about this PIB, another $40 billion of investment will move past this country.
In other words, the benefits that would have been achieved, you know, within these all years of deliberations and interest, like you said, may have been eroded somehow.
No, we don't have a choice. It might have, but we don't have a choice right now but to do something. Yeah, because investors are not coming. If you are going to invest money in an economy, you need to know your return on investments. You need to know the regulatory policies around that investment. And if the money is stolen, you don't just put it there. So investors were not coming. The ones that have invested here for years, we're not going to new investments. So they're just watching. Okay. So now we have a bill.
Let's get your view on some of the issues, controversies that arose, especially for the equity, you know, that the host communities should be getting. That's brought a lot of issues. It was not difficult for the House of Representatives to pass it. Why do you think you didn't have too many, you know, opposition to that your 5% yesterday, but at the Senate it was an issue?
I don't know. I don't know what happened in the Senate, because in fairness to the government, let me use the word the executive. The Minister of State Petroleum, the Group Managing Director, NNPC, walked the corridors of the National Assembly. I'm a member of the PIB ad hoc committee. Anytime we invited them on any issue, they were there. They would come with their team and talk and explain. At the shortest invitation, they are there. So they met the Northern Caucus, met the Southern Caucus, and even, I think the day before yesterday, they met with the entire House. While the Minister of State Petroleum was with us in the House, the GMD was with the Senate. And then came to join the GMD. The Executive Secretary, PTDF, was there. The GGM Nappings, they were all there. And we spoke extensively and covered basically all the fields. So there was no need to have any rowdy session in the House. Because we're all in agreement. So I don't know what happened in the Senate. Because if you look at it, our own session 240, I think, the host community, there was even an error in the clean copy that came to the House. They put 7%. There's somebody called to say this is a typo. But I thought that was what happened in the Senate, because Senator Baba Keita was one that even pointed out that this should be 5%, but it's 3%. So like I said, I don't know what happened. But there's going to be a conference, and then we'll harmonize it.
All right.
So you might still come back to 5%.
Okay, let's bring in again Dr. Chris Ekiyo, former president of the Ijaw Youth Council. Dr. Ekiyo, the story of the oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta has been that of mostly poverty in the midst of plenty, and of course, we've had these issues of environmental despoilation. The sources of livelihood of the people, you know, have over the years been eroded as a result of constant oil pollution in those communities. But there have been several interventions, including this 13%, you know, oil derivation. Now, what do you think makes this equity fund, whether 3%, 5%, or 10%, as some are proposing for the oil communities? How is it different from the 13% derivation? What can it achieve that the 13%, you know, did not achieve over these years in terms of developing the oil-producing and bearing communities in the oil-rich Niger Delta region?
All right, thank you. So we have to now go to the basis. First, we do not need a minority commission if we have a functional country. For instance, that has a transnational plan to provide equity for everybody and grow the country simultaneously with people's rights protected and environments maintained and oil exploration done in the standard that is found in Aberdeen, in California, and all over those major cities in the world. And where the oil coming from being industrial hub, there would have been no hue and cry for special concerns for the people producing oil. So there was a fundamental error with the implementation of the resources generated from the region. So you saw resources leaving the region and then taken to develop other regions, and those regions became urban centers, mega cities at the expense of where the oil is coming from. And that created the problem. And so there were these agitations and fear of the minorities that gave birth to so many commissions before the NDDC. Unfortunately, that 13% that is supposed to be managed by the peoples of the Niger Delta through the commission created by Act of Parliament is also such that the president in Abuja will appoint the board. Now, the politics of appointing a board goes beyond just appointing competent persons, but political patronage. Therefore, that 13% is majorly used to play political interest. And that's why you see people who come to NDDC, they keep sending the money back to Abuja to those who are appointing them, then they keep becoming ambitious to be governor. Why should an MD, for instance, of NDDC, who is doing his job properly, developing 9 states, want to now begin to be ambitious to now go and develop a state? It's because they end up servicing Abuja 60-70% of the time and taking care of themselves to go back to their state where they can now become lords or overlords. So there is the fundamental error of how you implement or you appoint the implementers of the management of that resources. And then the regulatory agency. Now my fear is this may also happen with the 5% unless it is clearly spelled out how communities will participate in that bill. And I need to check the details of that because we model up a lot.
Yeah, because we're actually coming to that. If the ones that were appropriated earlier, even the commission that was created could not deliver, then is it not the human beings that will still, operate the law, no matter what you put in the law, how good it is? We don't know exactly. You say you want to check out details, but let's come to the Honorable and check out some of the provisions of the PIB as passed today. Now, the first thing is that NNPC has been unbundled, by this bill when it becomes law. How does that help the industry? First, the first one is that it should be a commercial entity. That's what the bill envisages, and anybody can even own share in that NNPC Limited. So how would that help the country really? Or how would it make NNPC work better?
We have said, have you canvassed that in this studio? That look, the problem with NNPC is government. When, even now, the president is the minister of petroleum. When the villa will call anybody and give instruction. When you have a GMD that's run around the whole country and then maybe an announcement is made that it's been removed. So how can such a person plan? But if now we're going to have an NNPC Limited, a CAMA registered company, it's commercial. And, well, individuals might not own shares immediately, but the plan is in the nearest future, they should sell shares. And we have given the example of NLNG, Now look at it, it's investor driven. The investors have majority shares in NLNG. And like 2 months ago, the president spoke glowingly of NLNG. That is even 95% or 99% managed by Nigerians. And they are doing extremely well. But what he failed to add is that investors are in charge of the board. So we want an NNPC that will be like that in the future. But first thing first. I know most times in this country we are in a hurry. We just want to run. But yeah, it's good to do that. But now we have a commercially viable NNPC that is good for business. Investors can look at it and say, okay, yes, I'm comfortable dealing with the individuals there, not the ones that are controlled by government, or somebody wants to get anything in the oil industry and goes to the president, closes the deal, and the GMD or a minister is called and given instruction. If it's competitive, because there's oil everywhere right now. And we're also talking about energy transition. In the next 20, 30 years, this carbon fossil fuel might not be the main thing, because like I said earlier, we are in stiff competition with renewable energy. So everything that needs to be done now is being done. So unbundling NNPC is one of the biggest news that's happened to this country lately.
I hope this, move to unbundle NNPC and, of course, commercialize, that company, does not create another problem. I'm talking in terms of labor disputes. Already, there are fears that, there might be job losses, in the firm, going forward with this move to, commercialize NNPC. How would you allay those fears?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Even what they are doing, they haven't gone far enough to do that. If you ask me, yeah, that should happen. I am one person that I support right sizing. You say politicians shouldn't talk like that. But look at the business sense. I'm talking about maybe in the civil service and everywhere now. Right size. If you put the right people there to work, it will be for the benefit of the country. If you have an agency that you are losing billions and you move them away and put the right people there and the country starts making money, the money you are making is put back into the economy to manage the country. Those people you have taken away, maybe in the first case, they didn't even need that kind of job. Maybe somebody is better off operating a shop, maybe managing a farm, doing his business. But because he has a brother up there, the person is working in that office and is not interested.
All right, Dr. Chris Ekiyo is still very much on our Zoom platform. Dr. Chris, what's your idea of a Petroleum Industry Act, that will give a sense of closure to the people of the Niger Delta region, who, of course, we all know, or as they say, are the proverbial goose that lay the golden egg?
Well, that's what this PIB intended to achieve, where owners of the oil should now be stakeholders, like you talked about the shareholding. So in creating the NNPC Limited, I think the act should also have provided for equity holding by communities in that corporation, the way it has done for the government. I was reading the section that says that the Ministry of Finance will now manage the resources. So resources will not be managed completely by as NNPC is doing right now, declaring whatever they want. So that's a plus for this bill. But I also expected that as the communities have equities in the holding, they must have that same equity in the private sector driven NNPC Limited. Now, it is going to create a lot of relief if they allow stakeholders' participation in this unbundling process, and also a lot of sense of ownership and satisfaction by those communities. Because if you run a private business like the Honorable has just said, and performance is performance driven, it means that communities who have trained their people to work in the oil and gas sector can work in based on merit, not because my brother is connected to the president or the governor, or the GMD, so I now got employed and I don't even know what to do with it. Therefore, also means that people of the Niger Delta who have learned trained in the oil and gas sector can now begin to find jobs in the private sector driven NNPC. So I think it's a good.
Okay. We have a network issue.
Not like the bill doesn't have some benefits it's bringing.
Okay, still staying with you, Dr. Ekiyo. The problem in the Niger Delta, but more importantly, that has affected the host communities is the level of degradation, like we asked earlier. The cleanup of Ogoni land, the cleanup of places that have been affected by oil spill and all of that, and even the gas that is flared on a daily basis, how it affects the health of the people. Do you think this bill actually, if implemented, will also address some of the challenges you're experiencing in your region?
Yeah. So now the problem will be implementation. If you talk about gas flaring, there was an idea where they say we need to wind down and shut down gas flaring, and timelines were given. Those timelines have been shifted severally. So the real problem with the Nigerian system is ability of government and the regulatory agencies to implement. If you look at the power sector, it's the same thing. We're talking about meters. They're not there. People are willing to buy. They're not there. So this bill and this environmental degradation thing, if the government don't get the regulators to get the bill to work, it will still be the same thing. The gas flaring is being on, they collect money for this gas flare and they're just satisfied. Meanwhile, we need this gas to drive the industries. We need this gas to do other things. We just flare it and they take few per cubic, you take a small money, and those monies don't even get back to the people who feel the impact of the gas flaring. So regulation is what will salvage this bill itself and implementation.
All right, Dr. Ekiyo, there is this other aspect of the PIB which provides that fines from gas flaring collected from the oil companies will be deployed to the oil communities or the oil producing communities, for developmental purposes. Does that also sit well with you?
So why should you flare gas and take fire and then manage us? The gas flaring itself creates diseases, bring cancers, destroy the environment. We're almost under perpetual heat waves, and you tell us that you roast us and then you give us money to develop. It's not adding up. You need to put a law in place that will phase out gas flaring, refine those gas for domestic consumption where necessary, for energy or recyclable energy where necessary, and then the money generated from that can then be used to develop the region, not flare the gas and then kill us and give us medicine later. No, that's not what we want.
So let's hear from the lawmaker in the House. You were part of the people that worked on this. In fact, you are a member of the ad hoc committee that worked on the bill. Tell us exactly which aspect of this bill will address the issues that we're raising with Dr. Kio, the issue of gas flaring, the issue of degradation in the Niger Delta region.
There's a lot that this bill has brought on board. Now, we are talking about pollution of the environment, remediation and all. We now have decommissioning and abandonment. What that basically means is you have an asset that you have used and you have no need for it again. Maybe be it a platform, be it an oil well, be even pipes. So this bill now says that there's a commission. There's a commission to manage decommissioning of such assets. And then, this bill also approves that the original owners of the asset, if you have an asset maybe some 30 years ago, and you are divesting that asset to maybe another company. As is happening right now, most of the oil majors, the IOCs, the international oil companies, are divesting because the wells are depleted. So for them, it's too small to manage, and Nigerian companies are buying them. So the law now says, from you, that was the original owner, to the small guy that has bought it now, when we are doing the decommissioning, cleaning up those assets and managing them in a way that they will not become harmful to the environment, to the host communities, you all put money in the commission to manage that. That is brilliant. It was never in our laws before. And then talking about EDV, flare, from the way we are going, in another 5 years, nobody will be flaring gas anymore.
when you provide in that bill, that fines collected from oil companies, will be put back in the community for developmental purposes. It looks as if government is encouraging these unfriendly environmental practices because most of the oil companies are more comfortable paying the fines and keep on flaring these gas to the detriment of the oil communities and its people.
The flare has come down. It's not where we were some 15, 20 years ago. That's no longer where we are now. It's coming down. And like I just said, in another 5 years, nobody will be flaring gas in this country. So, but in the interim, whatever penalty that is paid today goes to the government. What they are saying now, before you stop flaring, whatever you have to flare right now, so even the commission, you have to account to the commission what you have in the reserve, what you are flaring, and your plans to mitigate the flare. So in another 5 years there will be no flaring. But in the interim, what you are flaring, the money should not go to government anymore. It's put in that trust.
That community.
So
all right, Honorable, how does this bill address the recurring problems of seeming incapacity in local refining, pricing regime in the downstream oil sector, and all of that?
Well, the bill has taken care of a whole lot. Now, the plan is after the president assents, I think within 6 months of operating the bill, the act, there will be deregulation, full deregulation. I don't know the magic that's going to happen, but I also think they have factored in the fact that we have like 2, 3, or 4 modular refineries now, or that will come on stream then Dangote will come on stream. So that will be oil, that will be refined product in Nigeria. So there will be no need to start importing and all. So all the extra we are putting in, and the agencies like PPRA and maybe PEF will go, not mind, will go. Wow. So there will be deregulation, and then we are going to be refining our oil here. And then just to even go to the frontier basin that people talk about, there's a 30% fund to manage this. The government goes in, and NPC goes in. By the time you discover you have enough finds in those regions, the private sector will the investors will begin to go there and explore. Then what does that do for us? Now, if you have oil in Maiduguri, in Gombe, in Bauchi, it's not easy to drill it and then build a refinery and pipe it to Jos. They even have a Benue Trough under the frontier basin. So the point I'm making there is the frontier basin will help us increase our revenue assets. That's the reserve, sorry, our reserve. So we have about 37 billion today. But by the time we go into all these ones, we might increase to about 40-something or 50-something billion.
All right, so staying with you, Honorable, let's look at the powers of the minister as, you know, captured in the bill, that the minister is now empowered to revoke or assign interest in petroleum prospecting and mining licenses and leases, also to formulate, monitor and administer government policies in the sector, and cut back of levels of crude oil production in line with prevailing international oil pricing, you know, that is available at any point in time. My question is the powers of the minister whittled down with this PIB,
yes,
or is it increased?
No,
you know, in terms of what the minister used to do in the industry?
You know, what the Desiani brought, I think those were the fight they had. You know, the then minister had too much powers. You know, but right now the minister is more like a supervisor. You know, because now they don't have the power. We just finished the marginal field round, you know, and everybody was reaching out to the Minister of State. Going forward, it will be the upstream commission that will issue license. You know, petroleum what's it called now? The exploration licenses will be the work of the commission, upstream commission, no longer the minister.
Are the powers of the minister in all of this really whittled down?
Yes.
When the document provides that the minister may order a cutback of levels of crude oil production in line with prevailing international oil pricing agreements, even as the minister may also give general policy directives to regulatory commission concerning upstream petroleum operations. The minister is also involved in
the minister is the chief accounting officer. So if he doesn't have powers to do that, he might as well just be a servant there. The minister currently has that kind of power, has this power, and more. But even right now, I mean, that's no biggie.
All right, Dr. Chris Ekiyo is still very much with us. Dr. Ekiyo, several interventions have been made in the Niger Delta region. From the days of the UNPADEC, which metamorphosed into the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. We also have the Niger Delta Ministry, the Amnesty Program, and the 13% derivation funds, which we earlier talked about. What difference have all these interventions made in the Niger Delta region?
Thank you. So I'm not one of those who will say that those interventions haven't brought some marginal development. I'll be lying. In fact, I can tell you boldly that if we remove the benefits of those interventions, you probably will find no federal presence in the region. So let's say between 2007 till date, if you take away all the infrastructure that NDDC, or let's say 1999, all the infrastructure that NDDC has built in the Niger Delta, you may not find any federal government infrastructure existing today. Because if you look at the Federal Ministry of Works, it's not doing any job anymore in the Niger Delta. If you look at what the NDDC is doing, that is where you can find federal government presence. What if you talk about even the universities that have just been created in the region? They were funded by agencies that had to do with the resources from Nigeria, like NIMASA and DPR and all of that. So these agencies, on their own, have been able to bring some marginal development. The only problem is the continuous interference, like the Honorable rightly said, by somebody in Abuja, perhaps in Aso Rock, deciding who gets what job and deciding how the budget is passed. The budget is not community driven. So you tell me, for instance, I want to build a duplex, whereas I do not want a duplex, I probably want a small shop. So we are not making inputs on how those monies are being used to develop our region. So it's done to suit political interests. So a road can be awarded that will lead to nowhere because somebody wants to make some money. So I think that the only lacuna that needs to be fixed is a clear roadmap and blueprint. And there was this Niger Delta Development Master Plan that if implemented would have fitted into that kind of arrangement. So those being appointed more.
All right. Okay.
That they need to implement what is existing by the books, not just come in and then sit down and say, put a road for me here in Ghana. put a road for me going here. No, that's what the government is doing now. There must be a blueprint and a development plan for everything and a timeline. In the next 2 years, this is what we want this commission to achieve or this agency to achieve. That's a milestone. If we're doing that, then we move from point A to point B.
All right,
Doctor. Goes into that, where we are going.
All right, Dr. Kio, the Niger Delta Avengers recently issued a warning to the federal government that if certain demands are not met in the Niger Delta region, then they might take up arms against the national facilities in the region. Now, with the passage of the PIB, do you think this is capable of dousing the tension? At least they now know that the government is bent on getting a regulation that will regulate the industry and ensure that their, some of the issues they are raising are met.
Well, I want to tell you categorically that we are not very unfamiliar with the strategies of government. This is just to buy time. As the Honorable said, whatever we've just passed now will take between 3 to 5 years to come into function. And whether you like it or not, there will be labor dispute. A lot of people are in NNPC doing nothing, so you're going to ask them to go. Because the private company will not just take them because their brothers employ them. So there will be labor dispute, there will be implementational crisis. The Niger Delta will not wait for that. We're saying there are quick wins that are already in place. Give the NDDC a report so that you open up that middle class that you've already obliterated in the last 5 years in terms of what you call a forensic audit, which it's not ending. And then so the middle class that works doing little contracts and not paid, so they can't recycle those little resources for the people. Clean up the Niger Delta like you are doing with Ogoni. You don't need to wait till that 5 years. The federal government made so much money already. Begin to be strategic. Before you set up your commission to start decommissioning things, what can you do? Implement the ones that you have said you implement. You talked about the 9 new towns. Let it run. Even the amnesty program that you're talking about is being micromanaged from the National Security Advisor's Office deliberately to suit only what is convenient to keep the peace. Now, this peace was guaranteed on the basis that certain fundamentals will be met. One of them is the equity thing of the community, which then was 10%. One of them is the environmental cleanup. One of them is the deliberate attempt to build capacity of the people. Now, even the small capacity that have been built have not been utilized. You talked about modular refineries. Please, I'd like to know who are the Niger Deltans that benefited and are functional in that modular refineries now. You talk about the marginal fee that has just been given out. Who are the Niger Deltans that were not beneficiaries? These things are for the elitists and their friends up there. Small Belema oil here cannot get a marginal fee to operate properly. Central Energy is being fizzled out. Even the fight is still on with Daneteta and an oil block. He's not the only one who have an oil block, but perhaps he's the one that everybody is going to kill because he has an oil block. There are people who have oil blocks perpetually doing nothing. They just keep the paper and even sell some out. So the Niger Delta people are conscious of the fact that there's a deliberate attempt to keep us on our knees. And that's why the Avengers is saying, listen up, we've been in our knees all our life. We will not be afraid to still be on our knees. The only problem I worry about is that they're celebrating the arrest of Kanu and Sunday. Let me tell you, there will be nobody to arrest in the Niger Delta. There will be no Nigeria when the Niger Delta decides to blow up itself. So that's why we must be careful, be prompt in responding to the issues of the vexatious people who are ready to die fighting for their rights. All
right, Dr. Kia, we will, of course, engage you further on this latest threats by the Niger Delta Avengers. But you earlier talked about the lack of federal government presence in the Niger Delta. Let me ask you, when you assess the level of development in the Niger Delta currently today, with the amount of resources that have, been deployed to that region since 1999, what do you make of it?
Well, we expect more. So let me tell you, between 2016 and now, I have seen this federal government working projects that have opened up fantastic roads in the north and everywhere. Take, for instance, the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano roads working. I've seen the rails working. There's a plan to move a rail, for instance, from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. The question I'm asking is, where is the rail from Calabar to Benin that will serve the Niger Delta people? Apart from the east-west road that has taken forever to complete, and I can tell you, if you take a car from Warri going to Port Harcourt, you can't drive above 60 kilometers because there are a lot of failed sections in a road under construction. You will not find anything else. They'll tell you that they are doing gas, they're taking gas from Niger Delta to the west, they're taking gas from Niger, pipelines are being laid, there's LNG and all of that. Those are transnational investment. The LNG that we are talking about, the gas they're going to produce in the next 20 years have been paid for, and that money is used to develop it. It will not come to the Niger Delta. The last time that energy paid some tax to the federal government, 1.7 trillion, was just when Jonathan was exiting and then Buhari administration got that money. Was it invested in Nigeria? It was for the national, it was put into the national treasury and shared in the 36 states of Abuja. So the overall is that whereas the federal government is working as a country, it is not investing itself in the Nigeria Delta. It has abandoned us to NDDC and abandoned us to ministry, Nigeria Delta Ministry. And check the budget for the Nigeria Delta Ministry. I heard this year is about 20 billion. I don't know whether that is true. What with that? We can't even finish.
Right, we appear to be having some network challenges, but the federal lawmaker is still very much around with us in the studio. Sagio Sogun, thanks for still being there. You heard all Dr. Chris Ekio, has said. How would you respond to some of the issues he raised against the backdrop of these latest threats coming from the Niger Delta Avengers?
Yeah, I think Doc is on point there. The Avengers, Niger Delta Avengers, are asking for restructuring. And we are doing the constitutional review right now. Now we have considered the PIB, by the grace of God, is done and dusted. Then we move on to the next thing, the Electoral Act. Hopefully we'll also pass that one, and then hopefully vote on the constitutional review before we go on our annual recess. So that by the time we come back, like people were saying, they will not be bringing the budget, you will not have time to look into all this. So that's the plan for now. People say, throw away this constitution. Some of us are saying, let's amend the present constitution to create a pathway to throw this one away. So, people are asking for plebiscites, referendum. It's not in this present constitution. So let's amend it and put it there. Let's amend the Electoral Act in a way that it can provide or it can give us a free, fair, and credible election. Because if we use this present Electoral Act to do a plebiscite or a referendum, it will still be rigged. So if we follow these stages, we're going to have a document that will work for us. But like I've always said, a constitution is as good as the operators. In the UK, they are governed by conventions and rules, not necessarily by a constitution, because they don't have a written constitution. But it's not a madhouse like we almost have here. So everything should not be on the constitution. But they have asked for restructuring, and I think even the APC campaigned with that in 2015, 2014 into 2015, that they will restructure this country. So maybe the Niger Delta Avengers are not just trying to let them know, we want you to honor the pledge you made years ago, that when we vote for you, you will restructure this country. And if we can do that through the amendments that we are doing right now. Because if you have devolution of power, some of these things we are talking about will be meaningless. Like what Dr. is talking about, Dr. Chris is talking about. Because if you have the Niger Delta controlling their resources, like you have the Northeast, Zamfara and Co., controlling their gold and all, and paying tax to the center. So who's going to blame anybody anymore that you're not developing the Niger Delta? So everything basically will be in your hands, besides the tax that you're just paying to the center. So let's take it one step at a time.
Now, talking about the referendum, you're saying, okay, before the constitution can be thrown away and a referendum called, there's no document to even allow you to do that at the moment. You have to put it in there. You're part of the constitution review movement in all regions of the country. Did that, was it part of the memorandum that was submitted by the people? And is there any likelihood of including that in the constitution amendment that is going on?
Yes, definitely, it's there. Some of us came with bills for the amendment, as in devolution of power, plebiscite, referendum, and when we went around the country, we also received memoranda to that effect. So, but the thing now, it doesn't end with the National Assembly. We keep saying this. We are going to vote on this. The APC said we will restructure Nigeria. They set up a committee headed by no less than Malam El-Rufai, somebody I have a lot of respect for. They came out to report saying true federalism, which is part of the restructuring we are talking about. So we should compel them to honor that. How do we do that? We are going to vote electronically. So you will know how everybody and every state voted. So if the APC really want to honor this, they should tell their legislators to vote in line with true federalism and restructuring of the country.
But the president seems to be telling people that are talking about restructuring that they don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, but we should also remind him of his campaign manifesto.
Well, the president recently also, expressed his commitment to restructuring so long as it comes,
Exactly.
from the National Assembly.
Yeah.
Well, you are a member of the National Assembly, and of course, as Nkoli said, you've gone around to take, inputs from Nigerians in those public hearings you held recently. Mr. Sagiosogu, you are an in-house member at the Green Chambers, and of course, you know what is going on as well at the Red Chambers of the National Assembly. Do you think, this 9th National Assembly is ready to give Nigerians a document, or alter the Constitution to bring about restructuring that reflects true federalism or fiscal federalism, resource control, and devolution of powers?
The truth is, as much as we blame this president, he is one president I think that we should easily get anything from. Because I have heard people say, the president says, what's the law? Go and follow the law. So, and he has told us clearly now, the National Assembly will bring a document that will reflect restructuring, and I will assent to it. So let's go and do it. That's what I'm saying. If the APC campaigned to say they will restructure this country, and they went ahead in 2018 to set up a committee that came out with such recommendations, true federalism and all, which is part of the restructuring we are talking about today. So let the National Assembly do that and then pass it. Okay, the states also have a role to play. So that's how we went around the regions. So the governors should work with the states to make sure that they actualize this. But most importantly, we should get the APC to deliver on this promise. And how do we do that? Get the APC states to vote for restructuring, to vote for true federalism that they told us they were going to do. So if we can get that, we are home and dry.
So that means if they don't even vote, then the hope of Nigerians on that may also be that.
Oh yes, and we cannot hold them responsible that you made a promise to us, you pledged that you will do this, and you have failed. So this should not be the president at all.
All right, let's see if we can talk to Dr. Chris Ekio. All right, he's still right there on our Zoom platform. Dr. Ekio, thanks for still being there.
Thank you.
All right. All right, there is no doubt that agitations over the years in the Niger Delta has yielded, some benefits, which I reeled out much earlier in the course of this conversation. The UNPADEC, NDDC, the Amnesty Program, the Ministry of the Niger Delta, and of course, the 13% derivation to oil producing and bearing communities. But it does seem as if agitations in the Niger Delta region, whether coming from Avengers, the IYC, the INC, or other stakeholders in the region, are targeted at the federal government, talking about the government at the center. How much engagement is going on, between the stakeholders in the Niger Delta, INC, IYC, Avengers, with the governments in the Niger Delta, talking about the governors in the Niger Delta? How much of engagements, have been going on with them?
All right, thank you. But quickly, I'll just add a line on what the Honorable has said about the Constitution. I am one of those who believe that you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. So I'm with him. The fact that what we have now is what brought the situation that we have found ourselves. If we take it out, then this situation does not exist in the first instance. So we must work from amending to accommodate the new views and then implementing those new views. So I submit to that completely. Now, about the governors of the Niger Delta, I do not know any state in the Niger Delta where the governors are not doing their bit as it has to do with their resources in terms of infrastructure and then in terms of human capacity development. In fact, in some states of the Niger Delta, deliberately, jobs are created to ensure that people participate. However, that does not mean the fact that they are corrupt persons, but this is not only to the Niger Delta governors, it's in almost all the federation, so it's not going to be specific. But to say that we would hold the Niger Delta governors responsible for not doing what the federal government should do, for instance, it's hard folly. The governors do not take our petroleum resources. They do not have the powers to even do that. Some states, only Bayelsa had the oil mining license, and I think it's been revoked for non-performance. So we are focused on the federal government because there is the problem that is happening to us, not caused by the presence of the state governor. The gas flaring, the despolation, the inability for us to access oil and gas sector to do business with them. It's not regulated by any state. In fact, a state government is as frustrated as a citizen on that matter. That's why you see most of the time the actions are targeted at the government that takes the resources. Many years ago, before Loibri, we didn't care about the federal government, we care about fishing, and we were just managing ourselves without any problem. Unfortunately, oil came and the federal government took our livelihood and took our laws and took our lands and told us they now own the land and own everything, even in our water. They spoiled the waterways and we can't even do our regular chores like fishing and farming. Because if you plant now, if you don't enhance those products, you find nonsense in your soil. I grew up even in the early 80s to realize that my grandma could just go to waterside in the morning and use a basket to get some fish. Now in my own community, you can't find fish. You have to go far into the sea. So the people are conscious of the fact that something that is happening from the center is affecting the local life standard. And that's why each time we are complaining, we complain to the center. The other factor is that the agencies like NDDC that was supposed to now take care of our need, we also have no say to who heads it. For instance, we woke up one morning and realized that NDDC has been moved from Presidency to PIB. Beautiful. What then happens? No board. There's a sole admin. Now, this sole admin also is also not the first. Why are we so suddenly angry? It's because it seems like there's a complete exclusion of everybody in adding value or even participating. There was a beams for 1 year under Buhari administration. I don't think anybody complained because she consulted and opened the agency to function. The real issue is that there is a claim to a forensic audit that has taken forever, and in 3 years, there's been no activity except the one that Akpabio dictates in NDDC. And it's not a one-man business. The state governments have stake, the IOC have stake, the communities have stake, and that's why there's this agitation. And if it is done right, it will douse it. The other one is the restructuring issue. The true federalism issue has nothing to do with governance. I can assure you that the Niger Delta states, whether APC or PDP, will vote in line with true federalism. The real problem now is that the federal government needs to advise its sister states, other states, to also think in that direction, because that is the vision of the federal government. Otherwise, it will continue to get the backlash of the people who are frustrated.
All right, Honorable, just before we let you go, let's get what Nigerians should expect at the end of the day. Now, you have done with the PIB now. Hopefully, it will get assent from the president. The next bill you promised Nigeria you're going to pass before you go on recess is the Electoral Act bill.
Yes.
Any work on that and any hope of speeding that up? Because that's one thing that people are agitating, that even civil society groups have been protesting.
I think that one is ready. I think the Speaker, when he spoke yesterday after the passing of the PIB, that the next bill that will follow is the Electoral Act before we go on recess. So my prayer is even that we should vote on the constitutional review. But I don't think that one is ready. But my prayer would be that we do that, so that by the time we come back from our recess, we would have gone around the state. So I think the Electoral Act is ready, and hopefully we should pass that by next week or the week after.
But there's one issue that is generating controversy, the issue of nomination into INEC National Commission. That's Loretta Onochie, for which even the PDP has gone to protest. Now, if you're trying to work on an electoral act that everyone will be comfortable with, an election will be free and fair at the end of the day, but you are at the same time trying to screen someone who is perceived to be a card-carrying member of a ruling party to also be in the umpire that will manage the election with the Electoral Act. How does that work out?
You see, that's why I don't think that should be an issue ordinarily. Nigerians get agitated about certain things because of the way government behaved in the past. If you have an INEC that's digital, the people heading those institutions will have little or nothing to do with the processes. Now, if we are registered to vote and it's transparent, we have our cards cannot be manipulated. You are credited electronically and you vote and it's transmitted electronically. What can anybody influence there? Nothing. But it's just because in the past people have manipulated something, and then you go to the court, it's manipulated, and you see a good man that has won an election thrown out. That's why people are agitated. Otherwise, it will not be an issue.
Why would it not be an issue when the constitution you're talking about that provides that such a person shouldn't be in that commission?
No, the point I'm even making, that would not have been an issue if we can manage our processes well. If we all follow this process, like, let me go through it again.
Then we can go against the constitution and follow the process.
No, not the constitution. I'm even saying if that works well, we don't even need to have such things in the constitution. But another thing I don't even want to go into is that's why you have people like the Senate president that have said whatever the president brings, he will sign up on. That's very dangerous. But I expect that we have PDP lawmakers. I also expect that we have rational APC members that will get up and say, this is not right. Because when you start this, where do you end? Because APC today, tomorrow it can be PDP, 2023 can very well be PDP. And then when you start this, because APC came and said, change. The mantra was change. And then you wake up and say, oh, PDP did this. But I thought you were supposed to change from that kind of behavior. So my take is, I don't think the senators will allow that to fly.
Honorable, does the Electoral Act, as it is currently at the moment, benefit anyone, politically speaking?
I don't think so. It shouldn't.
No. Politically speaking, you're a politician. Does it benefit anyone?
You see, it's the implementation, like we said about the Constitution before. A Constitution, any document is as good as the operator or the operators. If it's not manipulated, it's good. But when you say we're going to vote, voting starts by 8 a.m., and you do not send enough materials to that polling unit or to that locality, you don't send enough, and you don't send it out in good time. You bring it by 2 p.m., and you say voting stops by 4 p.m. That's already manipulation.
So if it does not benefit anyone, as you said, why do you think the president declined assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill?
Yes, because it does not benefit anyone. That's why he declined assent. Yeah, because he's using his veto power to stop it. Because if it had gone through, it would have been plain, and transmission would have been very easy, and then he could have been voted out. So, because it's going to be transparent, and he knows he cannot take advantage of it, that's why he refused to sign it.
All right, Dr. Chris Ekio is still with us on our Zoom platform. Yeah, okay, I can see him. Dr. Ekio, I don't know, as we begin to wind down this conversation, I'm sure you also want to make inputs to this Electoral Act Amendment Bill. But before you do so, former President Goodluck Jonathan, a son of the Niger Delta region, recently at a public forum, said that restructuring of the mindset ordinarily should precede political restructuring. Do you agree with the former president?
Well, that's philosophy. Whatever that is playing out today is as a result of our mindset. Because even with the 1999 Constitution fully implemented and respected, so much can be achieved in our country with less animosity. But we are more driven with our greed, our region, our ethnicity, and corruption. And there's so much for the country, enough to meet our need, but not enough for our greed. So that's creating the problem. So I agree with him that philosophy which is brought in place is that even if we restructure, if our mindset is still corrupt, we will play around it. Take, for instance, the e-voting. People will still manage the gadgets and the backbone and the internet and all that will feed that. If you are not careful, if their mindset is corrupt to rig for a particular system, just like we saw what is happening in the US system with all those contests, until proven otherwise, Nigerians will go there and still do what they need to do and corrupt the process to rig in favor of their person. So, but if our mindset is restructured, as you said, then we are one way out. However, that does not mean that we should not do something to go about electronic voting and do the restructuring thing as it is. We'll take one step at a time. I also think that the ownership thing, it's something to give people for concern. The constitution is clear. You mustn't be an active member of a political party to be in the INEC. You could be a voter. And there are a lot of Nigerians, credible Nigerians, who do not even belong to any political party, but they vote based on conviction. Such persons are the ones who can go and be an umpire in a game. If you take her in now as an umpire, and APC is going to be in that competition, it's already compromised.
All right.